Episode 4 of Starfleet Academy is being praised as the real Star Trek because it has debates, because it mentions Klingons, because it pretends to talk about culture and philosophy. But once you strip away the buzzwords, what episode 4 actually does is far worse than a bad episode. It redefines an entire species, removes conflicts from narrative and replaces growth with affirmation. This isn't Star Trek thinking, this is ideological cushioning. Episode 4 centers on Klingons and formal debate at Starfleet Academy. On paper that sounds promising. Classic Star Trek used Klingons to explore honor, confrontation, cultural absolutism and tension between strength and morality. A debate episode should be perfect for that, but instead of Klingons arguing fiercely, clashing values, pride, conviction, we get something very different. A Klingon cadet at the center of this episode doesn't want to fight, doesn't want confrontation, doesn't want debate, and visibly panics when challenged. Not metaphorically, he has a panic attack during a classroom argument, and this is where the episode thesis becomes clear. Let's be blunt, this character is not written as a Klingon who struggles with honor. He is written as a human character whose traits contradict Klingon culture and the culture is expected to yield. He is non-violent, conflict-averse, anxious under pressure, explicitly uninterested in war, and crucially he comes from polyamorous Klingon family that abandoned him. That backstory is not neutral. The show is telling you something very clearly. Klingon culture failed him. So now everything traditionally Klingon as strength, confrontation, honor, combat is framed as a problem. And Starfleet ideology is framed as the cure. That's not exploration, that's replacement. Now let's talk about debate itself. This isn't combat, this isn't violence, this isn't even high stakes. It's a classroom argument and the Klingon cadet collapses underneath. Not because the ideas are challenging, but because the show treats confrontation itself as harmful. Classic Klingons debated aggressively, they shouted, they challenged, they stood their ground. Here the character freezes, and instead of being challenged to rise to the moment or even wrestle with the Klingon ideals, an authoritative figure steps in and delivers the line that defines the entire episode. You are the warrior of words. Debate is also a form of being a warrior. That is poisonous. Not because words can be powerful, but because of when and why it is said. It isn't said after a strong argument, this isn't said after courage, it isn't said after growth, it's said after failure, after panic, after withdrawal, after avoidance. So instead of asking the character to confront fear or engage with Klingon ideals, the show redefines warrior so he never has to improve. That's not empowerment, that is lowering the bar and calling it progress. Star Trek used to say, these ideals are hard, can you live up to them? Starfleet Academy says, don't worry, we'll rewrite the ideals so you're already fine. That's not character development, that's narrative coddling. And then we reach the ending, the payoff. How do they resolve the conflict? Do we get a moral stand, a hard choice, a sacrifice, a moment of courage? No, they win because they have a better shield. A different Klingon hands him a weapon and the conflict is avoided entirely. No fighting, no debate victory, no internal change. The message of this episode is crystal clear. You don't need to face fear, you don't need to grow, you don't need to confront culture or conflict. Technology will save you, others will step in, the universe will bend. This is not pacifism, this is avoidance framed as a virtue. Classic Star Trek avoided violence, but it never avoided confrontation. Here, confrontation itself is treated as a villain. When you put all of this together, the message is unavoidable. The Klingon rejects Klingon culture, is emotionally fragile under pressure, is abandoned by a non-traditional family, is reassured instead of challenged, wins without earning it, and the culture itself is quietly rewritten to accommodate him. That's not Star Trek. Star Trek used alien culture cultures to challenge humanity. Starfleet Academy uses alien cultures to validate modern ideology. Instead of asking what can we learn from Klingons, the show asks how do we fix Klingons so they align with us. That's not diversity, that's an assimilation with better marketing. Episode 4 wants credit for being thoughtful, but thoughtfulness requires friction, growth requires challenge, and Star Trek requires ideals that mean something. Starfleet Academy episode 4 does none of that. It takes Klingons, one of the science fiction's most defined warrior cultures, and hollows them out until only the aesthetic remains. No honor, no confrontation, no strength, no growth, just affirmation. My verdict, this isn't Star Trek debating ideas, this is Star Trek running from them. And if this is how Starfleet trains officers now, no wonder the Federation keeps collapsing. Now it's time for some honorable mentions. Thank you for 56 subscribers, where 40 of them were from my last video. They can't even quote Star Trek right. They were attacked in the first episode, so she fucks off, gets drunk, and is useless the next day. Captain, my captain.